watch it.
Hey everybody, Sean Nelson here. It's August the 18th, Thursday, 8:42 a.m. We're heading out here. Mr. Andy Bennett, Mr. Matt Downs, Heather Allison, and myself. See the causeway back here? We're down at Port Isabel, launching here at the KOA. We're about to head out, go try to dive the Texas Clipper, do a little bit of spear fishing, maybe do a little bit of fishing, and you know, just get us a good wreck dive in. All right, see y'all in a little bit. So here we're heading out of Port Isabel. These are the jetties down there. On the left side is the U.S., on the right side is Mexico. I headed out. It's about 17 miles from the jetties out to the Clipper. Halfway there, this shrimp boat was kind of in our path, so we made a quick stop. Saw some sharks and stuff in the water. I'll take the GoPro, stick it in the water here. Off to the right, near the surface, you see some dolphins. Down to the lower left, down there deeper, those are all big sharks. Right underneath there's a bunch of remoras. Right under the shrimp are there, the little fish. Viz is pretty good already. We're only about halfway to the Clipper, so we're probably about 8 miles from shore. Andy's up here on the bow. We had a little bit of beer on us, so we wanted to barter a little bit. So we traded him a case of some beer. You'll see him hand the bag over here in just a minute. But he's going to give him a big orange bag of shrimp. So we got a fat little sack of shrimp out of it, head on. Got some of these crabs. Andy called them shame-faced crabs. Otherwise box crabs. Said they cover their face with their claws like they're ashamed of themselves. I don't know, but he said they were good. I ate them. They're pretty good. So we got those off the shrimper as well. So we get on location on the Clipper. Viz is great. Get tied up. Dive number 1. Me and Heather Allison, my daughter, get in the water here. Start our descent. A real easy mooring ball there to just kind of tie to. Of course, you see Barracuda already right off the bat. Great trigger fish there. Kind of a separated line here. The mooring ball is separate with another ball a little bit deeper to keep that line floating separately from the mooring line. But coming down here, see a bunch of little triggers, little schools of little trigger fish often hang around the line like this or right under the buoy up near the surface. Alright, so here I'm just double checking with her that she's ready and we're ready to start the descent. The ship's about 70 feet deep down here. The Viz is about 70 feet. You can see the ship from here, right? You can see it already. You kind of see it coming into view there. But it's about 70 feet down there. The bottom depth here is about 130. The ship's at 70, so it sticks out of the murky layer on the bottom quite a bit. But diving depths are generally, 70 to 100-ish. The ship is on its side. It's pointing south, but it's on its port side. It's on the left side, laying over. So that makes it a little bit lower in the water column. But it is an artificial reef. It's been here since 2007, I believe. But this is pretty good here. I can see pretty far down the wreck. It's 473 feet long. You can almost never see from one end to the other. It's just way too big. But I'm coming down. What I'm pointing at right now is there's always stingrays on this wreck when I get here. That's what I'm trying to point out to my daughter. She doesn't quite see what I'm pointing at. Her eyes aren't as good as mine. I think that's why she's out there at a distance. But it's a big stingray swimming around. I was just trying to get her to take a look at. I'm loading the gun. We're not really here to hunt so much as to just kind of dive on the wreck. But, I mean, if I'm going to be down here, I'm going to bring the gun with me. So there's a bunch of blue damsels. Those bright, iridescent blue ones. The sheep's head had the stripes. A bunch of common little fish here I can identify, but it's hard to do it quickly. All those little shiny blue ones, the pretty blue ones, those are all blue damselfish. There's going to be sergeant majors. There's blue and yellow ones. He's got a blue head and a yellow tail. You're going to see a bunch of those. Those are all Spanish hogfish. And then there's a few Cuban hogfish mixed in. They look kind of similar, but they're hard to explain the difference. There's kind of the pilot house looking down. Again, the ship's on its left side and it's laying over. So we're looking straight down, but we're looking across the deck right in front of the pilot house here. So I'm looking down there in the murk, and what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for any big snapper or grouper or something like that to come up out of the murk and take a look at me. Hopefully a grouper. That would be ideal. But I kind of want to get down here, just kind of look inside a little bit, get my daughter down near the pilot house. And while I'm down here, I'm kind of just taking a closer look at the murk layer, if there's anything swimming down there that I'm not seeing too well from further up. But I'm not really seeing a whole lot here. Again, I'm not 100% focused on spearfishing. Just kind of swimming around trying to do both. We swim out here, top of the pilot house, swim all the way up to the top, kind of look on the roof of the thing. Depth here is, I think, 111. This was our deepest dive. We hit 111 feet right there. We looked at it, kind of looked around for a second, and now we're going to head back up. So now we're facing this direction now. We're headed toward the bow. My plan here, this is a big ship. My plan is to go all the way to the bow, turn around, and come back and see how far back we can get. But I want to take my daughter over every inch of this wreck because she's never been on it before. But so here we are. We're coming down the edge of the ship where the top of the deck would normally meet the side of the ship, but the side is now the top. Coming down. There's the mooring line again. We went toward the stern just a little bit, doubled back. Now we're headed toward the bow. We're going to make a straight run for the bow. The current's at our back, pushing us in the direction that we're traveling. I'm using my left hand. I'm grabbing the edge of the ship and kind of pulling myself along to conserve energy and air. You have to be careful doing that. The urchins like to be right underneath that lip. If there's a long spine urchin there, you'll catch a bunch of spines in the fingers. I know that. I've done that on this wreck before. You see a bunch of line there, that yellow stuff, that's all fishing line all over this thing. Some of it's pretty heavy duty. You can get tangled in. And coming forward here, we're starting to lose the hull because we're coming up toward the tip of the bow. It's getting kind of narrow. That murky layer is kind of taking over. Kind of see this little forward forecastle house on the thing. This little shack way out on the bow, on the front of the ship. I'm looking around. I'm just looking for anything that stands out to me. Any gray snapper. You know, I see some gray snapper down there. I'm kind of just watching them, see if anything else is coming out. Just kind of surveying while we're taking the swim toward the bow. And then, yep, there's the stingray. So this is a southern ray. They get pretty big. You get up to a couple 100 pounds. But every single trip I've ever done to this wreck, those rays are on top of this wreck. And he's way up off the bottom. Crazy. But it happens every trip I've ever been here. Alright, so here we're going to continue on to the bow. So we're actually almost to the bow here. I'm just pulling myself the rest of the way. At this point, I kind of wanted to just get as close as I can just to say we started at the bow and we saw every bit of the ship. The bow, it does start getting deeper here as it kind of comes to a point for the tip of the bow. I don't really want to get way down in this murky layer. It's starting to get colder now that we're getting kind of in this murk. There's a Spanish hogfish there. So I tell her, okay, turn around, go back the other direction. We turn around, head back. Now here I've kind of skipped ahead. We're back around midships, around the middle of the ship. There's this long walkway. All the windows are gone, and it has these huge openings. Now there's a whole second layer there I could go deeper into, but I don't want to get inside this wreck to that degree. I've got my daughter with me. I wouldn't even do that by myself. I'm not certified wreck diver like that to go inside. I don't have any interest in doing that. But so this is just a easy in and out. There's lots of holes to get out without me going any deeper. I'm looking down in there. You can't see it on the video very well, but I can see down there just barely with my actual eyeballs, and it's just a big void. I don't see any fish or anything down inside of there. We kind of swim through here. The current's kind of pushing. We're swimming into the current here, passing through this little hallway. Kind of funneled the water, and it was a little bit to swim against, so I'm kind of grabbing the edges, pulling myself along to help save some of my energy here. So coming up on this spot here, there's a huge tear in the side of the ship. I assume this happened when they sunk the thing and it hit bottom and it turned over on its side, but you know, this is a little bit aft of a midships, not all the way to the stern, but it's a giant tear in the ship where the ship's like trying to break in half. And you can kind of just swim right down into the middle of the ship through here. To my left is looking inside the ship. To my right is looking outside the ship toward the Gulf. But I'm watching. That was a Gag Grouper. I saw lots of Gag Grouper on the 2 dives I did here, but they were all too small. I didn't really want to pull the trigger on them. They weren't, but 14 inches maybe. So, and I probably saw 6 or 7 of them, but I kind of gave them a pass. So I'm telling my daughter, we're going to just bounce real quick. We're going to go down here as deep as we can get right above this thermocline, this dirty layer, and see if something comes up for me to shoot, and if not, we're going to come right back up again. There's a lionfish. I try to poke him and injure him. I missed him, but I didn't want to waste my time messing with him. They're invasive, so I was just trying to injure him. I'm not trying to. I wouldn't want him to get stuck on the end of my gun and have to deal with that. So anyway, we're coming down here. I'm looking around in the murk. I'm looking for maybe a big gray snapper or a cubera, something like that to come up out of the murk. Maybe a red snapper. Red snapper season's open, so I was really hoping for red snapper, but I haven't really seen any here yet. Seen some grays and whatnot. There's looking down inside the tail of the ship. Looking outbound here. Now straight ahead of me, just over that lip to the left, there's like a decent gray. So I kind of pull my gun up, waiting for something to swim out in front of it there. I haven't quite committed to shooting anything. There's a lot. That's all shrimp net right there in front of me over that lip, down just a few feet. And I'm afraid to shoot anything there and have the spear shaft go through the fish or miss the fish and shoot into that shrimp net, because I'll probably never get it out. It's a breakaway tip. It'll tee up inside that stuff and I may end up having to leave my gun. So I don't shoot anything. We just kind of take a look. I tell my daughter, okay, we've been here very briefly. Let's head back up because we're kind of deep. So we start heading up. We're swimming up through that tear in the ship, the big crack in the side. Bunch of blue chromis there. They were so pretty. Even no matter how deep you are, they seem like they're really iridescent blue. Some of that white feathery plant you see to the left there on the screen, that's actually a hydroid. And there in the distance, it looks like a bunch of white feathery little bushes growing on random spots. Those are hydroids. If you don't have a wetsuit on and you let that scrape against your bare skin, it'll sting you like nettle. It's not like fire coral where it'll blister you and hurt you for a week or two. It'll probably kind of sting a little bit at first and then itch, and within 5 minutes it'll probably go away. But it will sting your skin if it's exposed. So getting up here on the top of the ship again. We're heading toward the stern now. There's the tear in the side of the ship. It goes almost all the way to the bottom of the keel here. Kind of looking around hunting. There's some gray snapper up top. That's a big school of gray snapper there. I see a cobia incoming. I'm looking for something to grab a hold of because I don't want him to pull me off the ship. So I reach over here, I grab the edge of this hole. I get my gun. I'm fighting the current with the gun too. The current's kind of pushing my gun to the side, so I'm kind of pushing against the current here, trying to get my shot lined up. I'm waiting for him to turn. He turns. I pull the trigger, and my stupid safety's on. So right now I'm like cursing through my regulator. I'm kind of angry and pissed off at myself. By the time I get the safety off, he's gone. Never came. He didn't come back. The second dive, which will be on this video later, I did shoot a cobia, but we know that we saw more than one cobia, so I don't know which one I shot. But that one got away from me. That was my fault. So we're still heading to the stern here. I want to get as far aft as we can. Again, I just want to cover as much of the ship as we can. There seemed to be more fish hovering over the stern. There was a huge school of gray snapper. You see some of them there. Pretty fair-sized gray snapper, but the school was, several hundred fish. They were hovering just above the wreck. But they're very skittish. They're really hard to get close to. We started moving back there. They kind of just push out away from the wreck. So I'm just kind of searching around, hoping something's going to swim up to me. We're kind of getting down into our air supply here. I'm just hoping to hit the stern, make it back to midships to where our mooring line is at, and just ascend. After I missed that opportunity on that cobia at this point, I kind of don't really expect to shoot anything. If I shoot anything at all, it would just be something small on the way back to the line as basically a consolation prize. But we still have a little bit of air and a little bit of time left. So again, we're just trying to make it to the stern here. We're still headed aft. Checking my time. You see all this gray snapper up there. You see this nephoid layer here, this dirty layer on the bottom. It's like cloudy, and above that it's kind of clear blue. The deeper you get, there's a bunch of goggle-eye scad there, or speedos. You can see the layer right there. You see the clear water above it. You see the gray snapper, that white cloud above the cloudy layer on bottom. Those are all gray snapper out there in the distance. That look pretty good. So we're about as far aft as I want to be. So we're turning around, telling her to turn around, go back. We're about to drop off down into that murky stuff, and I don't really want to be in that. So again, we're turning around. We're headed back toward the line here, and I'm kind of scanning back and forth. And I'm really kind of just hoping a gray snapper. I'm hoping that Cobia will come back. Spoiler alert, he does not come back. But I'm kind of hoping he would come back, or something else would come swimming up to me that I could, maybe get a shot on. But it just didn't happen. There's lots of spadefish. You see some sea cucumbers on the wreck here. Every once in a while, it's just like a big lump. They look like a turd laying on the side of the ship there. But a bunch of spadefish. They're good starter fish. They're real easy to shoot. They're okay tasting. But again, I wasn't shooting any spades on this trip. I'm asking her how much air she's got. She's telling me 1,500. I'm checking her bottom time. How much time is she allowed to be at this depth? Me comparing them. I tell her, okay. We're headed back to the line anyway. So we're going to have plenty of air. We're in good shape. So swimming back over the crack now. You can see way down. You can see almost through the whole ship there. I mean, it's almost broken in half. Big school of Atlantic spadefish off to the right. You see that was a Cuban hogfish there. Had the white stripe down the side as well as the yellowtail. Those spades are very curious. They love to get close. They're not shy. They're real soft-bodied. You could shoot multiple fish with one shot if you really wanted to. So we're going to get up here. I like to be on the edge of the ship. I like to be along places where I can kind of grab a hold and pull myself along. Just to, the more you're kicking, the more air you're using. I'm trying to conserve air as much as possible by assisting with my hand by pulling along. See some of the structure there, the stairs and all that. Of course, everything's on its side, so the perspective's kind of a little jagged here, but belongs to the fishes now. So this is the passageway we swam through on the way toward the stern. We're just swimming over the top of it on the way back here. There's the front of the pilot house. Moving toward the line here. There's big barracuda. Most of the barracuda are up above us. They're, we're at about 70 feet right here. Most of the barracuda are half that distance to the surface. They're up at, maybe 40 feet. Kind of hovering up there. Every once in a while, one will come down just to see, take a look out of curiosity and see what you're doing. There's a bunch of juvenile greater amberjack right here. They almost look like almacos, but those are actually juvenile greater amberjack. The almacos have a tendency to be a little bit darker. The fins, the dorsal and the anal fin tend to be a little bit longer and kind of swept back on the almacos. But usually the big giveaways that they're a lot darker. So I tell her, we were down to 5 minutes remaining. I tell her 2 minutes, we're going to go up. So here's a vermilion snapper. He's swimming away. I'm hoping he's going to come back. He turns like a dummy. I get a shot on him. Again, this is my consolation prize. I hadn't shot anything else. We're literally about to surface. I told my daughter 2 minutes, we're going up. And this is what I'm doing for the 2 minutes. So he of course he swims and gets tangled up immediately. I get him out. He's a little guy. They're not very big, but they're pretty liberal limits. You're allowed 20 in an aggregate limit. And, they're pretty tasty. So I take him. I'm trying to decide right now. Do I want to string him? I've got a stringer on me I could pull out. That almost seems like too much trouble. So I think what I'm going to do, he's so small, and I've done this before, I'm just going to take my shaft and stick it back in the gun. I'm going to leave him on the line, the retaining line. And I'm just going to reseat my shaft. I'm done hunting anyway. I'm not going to be using it again. I'm going to take that retaining line. I'm going to string it back onto the gun like it's supposed to be. And my thinking here is, the small fish, he can just hang on the retaining line while it's strung on the gun. He's not big enough to pull the line off of the gun. A bigger fish would just yank that right off the gun. But he's not really going anywhere. I can just clip the gun to me, and now I don't really have to worry about getting him off or stringing him or any of that. So I check our data here and signal for her. Let's head on up. So there's a line. We're heading up here. Get a little bit better view of the wreck as we ascend here. You can see more of it because we're not right on top of it. You see all the cutouts on the side. Some of that is to assist with the sinking. I don't know if any of that was to assist with diving. I don't think this was sunk as a diving wreck so much as just an artificial reef for fish, but the cutouts are nice anyway. So we're coming up, there's the boat there, coming back up the line and hitting the surface. Now while we were on the surface, Andy Bennett and Matt Downs did their dive and they shot a few barracuda, and that attracted some sharks. So this is a spinner shark. He's, you know, the barracuda, they smell the barracuda. They're kind of just coming around going, hey, I smelled dinner, what's going on? And he came in to just kind of check us out. I'm not really, that's closer than I really wanted him to get to me. Kind of turned around and he was right there. It was kind of a surprise. But I wasn't really scared. I got my daughter with me. You know, I'm sitting here keeping an eye on him, but we don't have any fish on us or anything like that, so I'm not overly concerned. We just went ahead and continued the descent here and just started our second dive anyway, even though the sharks are kind of swimming around. And through this dive, we kind of saw them in the distance. So here comes that stingray. We're down there on the wreck. I cut a lot of this footage out and just kind of simplified this second dive video here. But the stingray came by, kind of gave us a flyby on top of the wreck again. Again, they've done this every single time I've ever been to this wreck and dived it. They're always swimming around on top of it for some reason. So, but that was pretty cool getting to see because they'll get pretty close. So here, there's another cobia coming at me. I don't know if it's the same cobia I missed before. I know Matt saw one different. You know, after I shoot this guy, Matt saw a different one. So I know there's more than one, but comes in, turns just in time. I get my shot. It kind of gut shots him. He's swimming hard. He's not really, it didn't stone him. So I'll go ahead and decide to wrap him and clip him off just in case. I don't want to mess around with him too much. We just got down here. I've got a full tank of air. We're maxed out on bottom time. So I'm telling her I want him to wrap around that, where I've got that cable on my gun wrapped around, I want him to stay wrapped up on that. I'm telling her, get out of the way. The fish is swimming her way, and I don't want her to get wrapped up in the cable. You can't cut that. It is cable. So she kind of gets back. Now I'm going to come over here, and I want this fish to kind of keep looping himself around this structure to kind of keep himself wrapped up. I don't want him to pull the gun off the end of this pipe I've got it wrapped around. So I'm doing this little dance with this cobia here. What I'm trying to get him to do is keep swimming circles around this pipe I've got him clipped to. Kind of went inside there. He's kind of thrashing around. I'm kind of just waiting him out. There he came back out. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to guide him to keep making a circle in the same direction around this pipe that my gun's clipped around. So I'm going to go up there. He's already swimming the right direction I want him to. So now I'm going to kind of grab the end of the shaft. But every once in a while he kind of doubles back on me, so I got to turn back around. And what I don't want to happen is, you know, I'm kind of doubling back. I'm trying to get out of his way. I don't really want to be in front of this fish. I don't want him to swim over the top of me and go around and that line come tight and him wrap me tight against the rig and the cable. I don't want to get tangled up in this cable. So I'm trying to guide him as much as I can, but I'm trying to be cautious that I'm not getting wrapped up by this guy. So now I see him starting to get tired. He's kicking, but he's kicking for a second or two and then resting, second or two and resting. So I know he's getting there. So at this point I feel comfortable to kind of walk the dog, like I like to call it. I grab the shaft here, and I'm just holding the shaft. I'm not really trying to control him too much. I'm letting him swim him around, and I'm using that stick. You know, he's on a breakaway. He's on a breakaway tip here, so there's a lot of wiggle room at the tip without him bending my shaft. And I'm just letting him swim around. I'm not trying to force him or horse him. I'm just using the shaft to kind of, you know, make him sit there and struggle. Try not to bend the shaft as well. And I'm basically just sitting here taking my time. Again, I've got a full tank of air, plenty of bottom time. And I'm just going to let this fish wear himself out. I could get in there and manhandle this guy probably, and I could have probably killed him already. But in that process, there's a pretty good chance he would have knocked my mask off, knocked my regulator off, or out of my mouth, I mean, and just kind of gave me a hard time. So, and I want my daughter to see the right way to do this, and it really is, especially if you got enough air, just to let him kind of wear himself out. Don't bring a green fish in the boat. Same thing down here. So I see he's really getting tired now. He's kind of petering out. I just hold him on a short leash, try to stab. It doesn't go through, so I just wiggle it in like you usually have to do anyway, and he's done. That's it. He's a goner. So now I can just kind of prep him to take up. So now I strung him, and I've got him clipped on my right side. You see him hanging on my right side there. He's clipped off to me on a stringer. So I'm going to take my gun and take the clip and reach down and clip it on that same D-clip on my right side. And then now I'm unclipping the fish and moving the fish to my left side so they don't get wrapped around each other. Now I'm getting ready to take off. I'm going to reach over my right side to grab my gun and push it up on the back of my leg so it's not dragging on the ship. And I go, where's my gun? It's not there. I look down. Lo and behold, it somehow it didn't clip. I should have double checked that. That's my bad. Almost lost my gun. That was a narrow save there. That was real close. But that is an Almaco jack. That dark little fish right there is absolutely an Almaco. They will get quite a bit bigger than that, but they're usually on kind of the smaller side. So I got my Cobia here. He's hanging on my left side. Spirit gun's hanging on my right side. I have not forgotten about those sharks we saw on the way down here. So as we start our ascent here, when you see me looking around, I am looking for those sharks. I've been doing it since I shot that fish. Right, so heading up now. Again, safety stop, 3-minute safety stop. That's what I'm signaling there. We're up near the surface now. We're about 15 feet, 15, 20 feet down. And here's the sharks. Of course, they're coming in. They smell that fish hanging on my leg. There's 3 sharks is what I'm telling her. 3 big spinners. That's what I'm trying to signal to her, as I'm saying those are spinner sharks. She's not understanding, so I kind of signaled with my hand and told her, I'll tell you when we hit the surface. There's that Almaco again, that dark little fish there. That's a little Almaco. Those are pretty good to eat when they get big enough to shoot. She's pointing at a little remora that was on the Cobia that was hanging on me. So there's a shark down there swimming over the wreck. Somebody in a boat has hooked a fish and they're reeling it up. This shark starts swimming straight up vertical. He's chasing the fish being reeled up. And kind of about 20 feet from the surface, he kind of peels off and they reel the fish in. I'm not sure what kind of fish it was, but yeah, he was chasing a fish upward there. Again, we're sitting here at the safety stop. They're coming in, spinner shark. Come in and just kind of take a look at it, see what we're doing. Of course, I'm waving my Cobia at him like a dummy, going, yeah, this isn't my leg. And they kind of just swim off and disappear. That's usually what happens. I never really have too many issues with sharks. They're kind of just curious, come take a look, and usually they're on their way. But handing the Cobia in here, he ended up being 43 inches, probably 15 pounds or so, 15, 20 pounds. But thanks for watching the video, and catch you on the next one.